back in the 80s were not anything near as exciting as the boats which are designed and optimized for spectating. So our speaker today started as a young sailor in San Diego, started racing at an early age, went off to St. Mary's where he was a 3-time All-American. He grew up in the same vintage and in the same era as our own Morgan Larson. And as he kept racing boats, kept thinking about how can I make this more and more and more exciting. So he teamed up with an investor in San Diego and the San Diego Tourist Bureau to do extreme sailing in San Diego. So please welcome a really great sailor and an entrepreneur in the sport of spectator sailing, Matt Reynolds. Matt, come on up.
Thank you, Ron, and thanks, Commodore at St. Francis Yacht Club. It's a pleasure to be here today and an honor. I grew up sailing here on the bay in many different types of boats and in many world-class events. And so it's amazing that I'm actually standing here today in front of the crowd and talking. So thanks for having me. My name's Matt Reynolds, and I grew up sailing in San Diego. I got involved in the sport at a very young age, and it captured me, and it's something I've been doing my entire life. At this point in time, I've been sailing professionally for about 20 years, and it all stemmed from junior programs and getting involved in high school programs, and then also going on into school and realizing that at some point this might be a career that I could do. I stuck with it, and I've been very fortunate and lucky to be a part of the sport. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Extreme Sailing Series. In a funny way, I got involved with the Extreme Sailing Series in 2013 when the America's Cup was here in San Francisco. We had a youth America's Cup team from San Diego Yacht Club that had no experience in catamarans. It was basically dinghy sailors. We put them together. We came up here to the bay, and we needed to find a boat that they could train on to get ready to sail on the AC-45s at the time. So we reached out to OC Sports, who's the owners of the Extreme Sailing Series, and chartered one of their Extreme 40s at the time, which they were sailing. And that was where we developed our relationship with the Extreme Sailing Series. We started thinking a little bit more about bringing an event to North America, and being San Diego and having such a wonderful bay, we decided that that was the best venue. So here we are today. We've had 1 year already behind us, and we're getting ready for year 2. And I'm going to show you a little bit of the highlights here and talk a little bit more about what we're trying to achieve and what we hope to grow in San Diego, but also North America as well. The Extreme Sailing Series will return to San Diego again in October. This year it's the 18th to the 21st, and so it's just around the corner. And it's a great time to be in San Diego. And fortunately, last year we had incredible breezes, so we hope it's the same for the second event. Let me show you a little bit of a video here next. It's the highlights of the first event in San Diego.
Beautiful here in San Diego. It's looking like a really light air day. It's not the worst thing for us being new to go get a feel for what's going on in the light air.
You know, it's always just great to be back in this fleet. You know, the caliber is super high, and to be doing it here in San Diego with a bunch of locals on the boat is a great feeling.
It was a good day for our team. You know, we gelled together really well as a team, and for sure we can make some improvements for tomorrow and have some more good racing. We're looking forward to it.
So yesterday we had a really good first day, but today it's different. Some really nice wind out there, 12 to 15 knots, so it's going to be really nice racing and some great foiling.
These boats live for these sort of conditions. It's no fun for us as much as it is today, sailing around and doing 30 knots, so I think we're really looking forward to it.
probably some of the coolest racing we've done all season here in San Diego.
A big fight now between three boats to get to the podium. Alingi and SB, they are really good on the front, but it will be a big fight for the podium, and you can only do your best race after race.
Turn the beat up.
We're expecting some good conditions and extremely close, tight racing.
Beat up. Turn the beat up.
You cannot blink, ladies and gentlemen. This is live sailboat racing. Oh, big crash. A great battle here. Lingy trying to get over the top of Red Boat. Whoa!
Listen to the crowd go wild here.
Yeah, I mean, the team's, stoked that we finally won a race. For us, it feels like it's been a long time coming. We've been chipping away.
We showed everyone up today with how these boats should be sailed. Got to make sure we push hard tomorrow. Final day here in San Diego, and we've got a healthy lead over Alingi and Oman Air. Everything is on the table, so many points to be taken. It would be nice to be able to push Alingi and Oman back down the fleet.
Fastest boats in the world, the best sailors in the world are all separated by inches.
We need speed for the maneuver. Plenty of action here.
Wow, wow, wow. This is super exciting here, Alan.
Come on, Reynolds! The battle is joined, ladies and gentlemen. What a tough day for Phil Robertson.
Oh, there you go.
And they have won the first ever San Diego Extreme Sailing Series event. Congratulations to the Danish team and its Kiwi skipper Adam Minoprio.
Nice work, lads.
Now, it's a fantastic result for SAP out there today. For Los Cabos, it gives us a little bit of breathing room against those guys, but it's double points to the regatta, so we've really got to make sure we're still on the money there.
Thank you. We were very, very fortunate last year to have really good wind in San Diego. We don't normally get the same kind of breeze that San Francisco gets down in San Diego. In October, we have a condition called Santa Ana, and it produced over the 4 days of the event that time around. So we actually got to see these boats sail around in 15 to 20 knots, which is really unbelievable to see. So let me just run through a little bit of the highlights of what we did last year. We had a couple previous big events in San Diego. One was the AC World Series and one was the RC44s. Both those events were run off of the city front in San Diego. When we decided to do this event, we had a different idea on how to bring the sailing actually closer to the people and closer to shore. So we decided to use Harbor Island. Harbor Island's basically directly across the street from the San Diego airport, and there's hotels on that island, and it really is the best venue in San Diego, we feel, for sailing, because it's similar to the San Francisco Bay and the St. Francis Yacht Club, where the boats can actually come within meters of shore. So we can actually go to Race Village and put people on the shore and really put them into the action of the sailing. So we were able to activate Harbor Island really for the first time as a premier sporting venue. We drove over the 4 days of the event, about 20,000 spectators, which we were very happy with in year one and would love to continue to improve on. The series itself is really got some of the top sailors in the world sailing on it. We have 43 diverse sailors from 10 nations. They have 52 world titles, and there's 14 Olympic campaigns between the sailors on these boats. So it really is top-level sailing. Team Extreme San Diego was showcased at this event, and I know some of you probably recognized Morgan Larson. He drove the local San Diego boat for us, so St. Francis Yacht Club member. We also have a group of San Diegans who were part of the Oracle sailing team last year, so we put those guys together. They've been sailing together for a long time and are friends, and we got them out there on the water. So it was really nice for us to be able to show some of San Diego's local talent and some of San Francisco's as well. One of the unique things that we did last year on the Extreme Sailing Series, which hasn't been done before, is we decided to activate the water for a longer period of time than just the GC32 sailing. So we reached out to the top 15 kiteboarders in the world and invited them to come to the event for prize money. and all 15 accepted. And we actually raced kites right off the city front, which has never really been done in San Diego. It's not like San Francisco where you see them all the time. And so we added that to the event so that for the spectators that actually come down to the shore to see the sailing, that it's an entire day of activation on the water. And so the kiteboarders would go in the morning, the catamarans would then go out, and then after that we would have the kiteboarders go back out for a couple of races. So it was a great addition to the event. We would love to see it happen again, and I think that it really adds to the foiling aspect of what we're doing, and we now know that kiteboarding is going to become an Olympic sport, so I think we're going to see a lot more of it. Stadium racing, that is the concept that the America's Cup has been trying to do for the last couple times of the America's Cup, and it's really what OC Sports, which are the owners of the Extreme Sailing Series, pioneered. And they started this about 12 years ago. And the concept of stadium racing for them was to find iconic venues that they could race close to shore and do a lot of racing in a short period of time. And they've had a lot of success doing that. They have gone to countless cities throughout the world to do this. And again, San Diego is sort of a perfect venue for this, and we're really happy that we're able to do this event there. A couple years ago, they transferred from a boat called the Extreme 40, which was the original catamaran that they sailed on the series. And with the foiling technology changing so fast in the sport, they looked at a new platform, and that's now what they're sailing. It's called a GC32. It's a 32-foot foiling catamaran. Fairly similar to what you saw here in San Francisco, except there's no winged mainsail. And they only foil downwind. They don't foil upwind. So they're a little bit more downsized from what we were used to seeing here in the Bay Area. But the concept is to, foil around in front of people right along shore, and they're a really great platform. Each boat is crewed by 5 athletes. The concept, again, is to view all the action as close as possible. And these boats go to 8 different events throughout the year. We go through those a little bit later on, but once they're done, they just get packed up in 40-foot containers and shipped on to the next venue. So the entire series is run very efficiently by being able to pack these things up right after they sail, ship them on to wherever they are next, pull them out, put them together, and then be out sailing on the water within a day or so of arriving to where they need to be. A little bit of an overview of the act. Again, we based this event on Harbor Island, and that's the first time that San Diego has ever had a major sporting event on the island. The reason we did that was because of the ability to watch the racing up close. What we've done in San Diego is we've created a public racing village, and so we've put kids' STEM-based stuff in there. We've got beer gardens. We've got all kinds of activities for people to come down to and have going on while the racing's going on. And that public village is actually free to the public. So unique to some events, anyone can come down to San Diego. Anyone can come down to the village. They can walk around. They can be a part of everything. It's completely open. And that's really important to us because one of the things that we're really trying to do is to offer people that don't understand the sport of sailing or can't necessarily see it, if they can't get on a boat to go out and see it, to actually come down, see a unique type of sailing, something that's fast and fun, and I believe it's working. The sailing, again, is 4 days. It's incredible the amount of sailing they get in that 4-day period. We do between 20 and 32 races. The races we try to keep them between 12 and 15 minutes each. So it's fast pace, a lot's going on. Typically they race between about 3.5 hours on the water. There's also a couple of other VIP experiences that we offer at the event. They're built out throughout the village. Some of them are simple beer gardens, and some of them are more extreme. We have something called the Extreme Club. It's something that OC Sports runs. It's sort of the heart of the Extreme Sailing Series. It's where the sailors are. It's where the press conferences are. It's where the sponsors are. And that is something that anyone can be a part of. And it's really unique to sport because you can interact with the sailors during the actual day that they're racing. So I go around and talk about this and share this with a lot of different yacht clubs and different organizations throughout the country. And San Francisco is a little bit unique because you guys you've seen this before, and you've had the America's Cup, and you've had foiling catamarans, and you've had this. So this is not something completely new to you. What is different is that the Extreme Sailing Series is fleet racing, excuse me. And so we have anywhere between 7 to 10 boats sailing, depending on where we are in the world. And again, really short racing. And it's pretty incredible to see 8 or 9 or 10 or how many of these boats sailing around on the race course together. It's incredible to see 2 doing it, but when they're crossing and each other and going the speeds that they're going, it's pretty unique. The other benefit that we have that's different is we can bring the event back year after year. And it's up to us to go out and get the backing to do that, but it's something that we control. So for San Diego, it's something that we can build upon. We can build for the future and continue to work to make this event more popular in San Diego. So with the foiling, again, I have a video next. It's going to explain a little bit about foiling, and I think a lot of you probably know a little bit about that, but let's go ahead and let these guys.
This is a hydrofoil, and what we have is a shaped piece of carbon fibre, and the cross-sectional shape of the hydrofoil is exactly the same as an aeroplane wing, full at the front and then tapers away to a very thin trailing edge. And the way it works is exactly like an aeroplane wing, except it's immersed in water. So the boat's going along, you increase the angle of attack, and as the angle of attack increases, it lifts the boat out of the water if you're going fast enough. There's flow going over the upper surface and the lower surface of the hydrofoil. As the flow accelerates over the top of the foil, it creates a suction on this surface, and that starts to lift. And also there's a pressure on the undersurface which is pushing up.
I'm going to demonstrate how lift works by lowering the pressure over the top side of the piece of paper. So by me blowing over the curved section at the top of the paper, I'm lowering the pressure of the airflow over the top. This causes a pressure differential between the bottom side of the paper and the top side, and causes the paper to lift up.
But if we can get the old hydrofoil to do its work, it will lift the boat up, we get rid of all the drag on the hull, and all of a sudden into warp drive, in that there's very much less drag. If there's less drag, you can get more speed, and so off you go.
Yeah, so this is where sailing's headed right now, and it's been an incredible leap in technology in our sport over the last 10 years. It's actually been around a little bit longer than that, but it's really coming to the forefront of what we're doing. I get a lot of questions about, is it the right direction to go? It's a lot different than what we've done in the past. I don't have an answer for that, but the fact of the matter is foiling's here. It's here to stay. It's revolutionizing the sport of sailing, and it will be interesting to see what the future's like. It's going to be faster. It's going to be exciting, and I'm actually personally looking forward to seeing where we end up. Here's a couple of unique situations with foiling. I mean, really, almost any boat can foil, it seems, at this point in time. The Moth is a boat that has been at the forefront of foiling technology now for quite some time. But you can see here someone's put a foil on a laser and they can get it to foil. We have other smaller catamarans that are foiling, kiteboarding, which is foiling, which will become an Olympic sport. And obviously the America's Cup and the Extreme Sailing Series are using that. So this is really an interesting time for sailing. It's an exciting time, and I think that we'll continue to see this technology get refined, especially now with an America's Cup coming and a new platform. So this is basically the concept of the next America's Cup. It's a monohull that will foil. And I'm not an expert on the upcoming America's Cup by any means, but this is going to be pretty incredible. The technology that will go into something like this is just going to be incredible to watch happen. So we'll see how it all goes. I think that some of the teams are getting close to putting prototypes on the water at the moment. And I'm interested to see if it all works or not. But I'm sure that it will. There's a lot of incredible sailors and engineers that are working on this kind of stuff. So the future is going to be really interesting to watch. The Extreme Sailing Series offers a lot of unique things that other sailing events don't, but one of the most unique to this event is that we put guest sailors on every boat during every race. So for the 32 races or however many races we have, every single boat actually has a guest racer on it during the races. And, you know, that's just pretty unique to any sport. There's not too many race cars that you can get in and go around a racetrack. You're certainly not going to go out and be a lineman and during a football game or something like that. So it's an incredible experience. Anyone can do it. It's something that we've seen be very, very popular amongst the fans of the sport, and it's really helping drive some of the sponsorship that we work on to get to the event. And the people that actually come off the boat are sort of blown away by the whole thing. A little wet, but they managed to survive. So this year's venues for the Extreme Sailing Series started in Muscat, Oman, and that was the 14th through the 17th of March. It then went on to Lake Garda, and that was a world championship, and that was the first year that this was done. There's another fleet that sails GC32s, which is called the Great Cup, and the two classes combined to do a world championship. So that was a first-year event. Then went on to Barcelona, Spain. Cascais, Portugal just ended this week. I know I just talked with the OC Sports guys. The boats are on containers, and they're all headed back to Cardiff, UK at the moment. Then San Diego, and then Los Cabos. So San Diego and Los Cabos were both first-year events last year, and both those events will see year two. And I know that the Cabo group is also looking to have a long-term commitment from for the sailing down there. So it's nice that the boats are actually finally coming this way, and we have two events that technically are pretty close to each other compared to some of the other venues on the map here. The sailing series, the Extreme Sailing Series, has also taken part in Australia, Japan, South Africa, China. I know they've been in Singapore. I'm sure I'm missing some of the locations they've been to. They've been operating for 12 years, and so they've really been able to accomplish something that hasn't really happened too often in the sport of sailing. So it's a fantastic opportunity. It's a great group to be working with because logistically they pull this off. It's amazing. It's hard to get all these boats around. It's hard to make shipping time frames. It's hard to make sure that there's no other issues that might happen. So it's awesome to see them going all over the world, and actually coming out west is a big part of the expansion of the Extreme Sailing Series. So there's a lot of ways that you guys can be a part of the Extreme Sailing Series. One of the things that we're really working hard to do is to bring this sport a little bit more mainstream to people that haven't been involved in sailing. I know a lot of you today that are watching this are sailors. But the unique part about this is you can come and stand on the rocks and watch fast boats go sailing. And it's exciting. And even as a non-sailor, you can walk away from a day of watching this and say, yeah, that was pretty unique. The boats are fast. There's commentation going on. There's explanations of what's going on the water. So getting the word out about what we're trying to do in San Diego is really important to us. This is why we come and meet with people and talk a little bit about what we're trying to do. So anytime that people can spread the word, we appreciate that. One of the most important things for us is bringing people to San Diego. We work really hard to get funding from different organizations in San Diego, and some of them, one being the Port of San Diego and the San Diego Tourist Marketing District and the Port of and Tourism Authority in San Diego, are all big backers of this event. So we work hard to drive people from out of town down to San Diego. It's a fantastic time of year to be there. It's October. There's a great sailing event going on. So we work towards that quite a bit to make sure that we're bringing people out from out of town. And another reason why we come and speak to the clubs and speak to some of the other organizations around the country is really trying to convince them to come and watch this event. We have all kinds of sponsorship opportunities and hospitality packages. And so if anyone were to come down to the event or get interested, the best way is to reach out. But we are, again, working to build an event in San Diego. We're looking to do a long-term commitment. And so all these things are important to us, is reaching out to people that will get behind us and support what we're up to. We also have, to put an event on of this magnitude is pretty tough. And I don't think I realized how hard it would be until we got through year one. But we have about 200 to 300 volunteers, and we're always looking for more. So if anyone ever wanted to come down and spend some time as a volunteer in San Diego, then we'd love to have you. It's a great 4 days, and it's really turning into a great event. So that really ends the presentation today. I want to again thank St. Francis Yacht Club for having me. Again, it's incredible to be standing up here talking to St. Francis Yacht Club. Again, I've done so much sailing on the bay, and that's really where I've spent most of my time, but this is a real pleasure. So thank you very much.
You bet. Welcome again to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon live from the St. Francis Yacht Club, and to all of our listeners out on Facebook live, our live stream. We now have had over 40,000 visitors since the beginning of the year, viewers on the Facebook live stream. We want to thank our good friend Tom Eamon and Julia Kirsch of Sailing Illustrated, and Ryan Busalaki, our cameraman, and Vern Neff, who will be running the mic for the Q&A section. After I ask a few questions of our guests, and I would like to have any of our audience raise a question that they may have. So, Matt, you're a professional sailor. You started as a kid, junior sailor. You were fast as heck, a 3-time All-American. Can you remember the moment when you thought, I think I want to make this my profession?
No, I can't remember exactly, but I really enjoyed the sailing in college. And we were able to have some success as a sailing team in college. And at the time, it was in 1996, professional sailing was changing in the States. There was more opportunity than there had been beforehand. And I studied business in school and pursued that for 1 year in New York before I decided that maybe I wanted to give sailing a go. So at that point in time, I was living on the East Coast. And I moved to Newport, Rhode Island. It was really sort of the area that professional sailing was taking off the most at the time. And I went for it. So I was living on people's couches and, having sailing teams that would have me go sailing with them, buy me lunch. And it was probably one of the great times of my life. And I didn't really know at the time if that was going to work out or not. My father was involved with Dennis Conner and multiple America's Cups, and I think there was times where he said, I don't know about this, but it was a passion, and I was in the right place at the right time, and it ended up working out.
So in our audience somewhere, there's a 17-year-old kid. He or she is saying to themselves, I love to sail. I'm not loving schoolwork too much. I find myself wanting to get on the boat more than get behind the desk and do my homework. Tell me, how much does a crew make? How much does a bow guy make? How much does a skipper make in an extreme sailing regatta?
Well, it really varies depending on the teams. Because of the level of talent, it really is the top sailing in the world. But you also have teams that are on the extreme sailing series, like the British team, who are really youth sailors. So it's hard for me to really answer the question of how much they're getting paid, because I think depending on the team and your resume and what you've accomplished in the sport really depends on that. I can say that the top athletes do well, and I think that they have a great career. It's an amazing sport to be in, and if you work really hard and you stay committed to it, then you can make this happen. But I think you should stay in school, and you can do both. You can so. From a financial standpoint, it's hard for me to really answer, but I know that it fluctuates depending on your skill level and your experience in the sport.
As you were answering the question, man, I saw you looking out the window, and yes, indeed, the pack-up start was about 30 seconds ago. And if you look out here, you'll see guys coming in on starboard and others ducking them on port right in front of our windows. I mean, you could actually hit a golf ball from here to any of the boats. And look at this guy ducking on port here, and he's going to duck 2 boats. Uh-oh, not a good look right at the start. But looking at the size of that boat, he'll be there in 9 days, 8 days. So who cares if he loses a few seconds right here? So let's see. Talk about in '89. I raced in the Pro Sail 40 series, which I think was our first professional series in sailing. And then in the early '90s, we had a boat in the Ultimate 30 series, and we would race for prize money then. And in those days, you could win $50,000 for your team if you won in the Pro Sail, in the Ultimate 30s. Talk to me about the prize money and or thought about prize money in extreme sailing series.
Yeah, well, sailing's changed, as you can see, a lot over the years. And the Extreme Sailing Series, actually, there is no prize money. It's just like a lot of the other regattas that you would see here on the bay. The series is actually driven really by corporate sponsors. And so the teams are out there raising money through sponsorship. The series itself carries sponsors. And that's really how the Extreme Sailing Series is driven. And so those sponsors then... in their budgets and stuff like that, are the ones that put up the salaries and stuff for the sailors. So the Extreme Sailing Series is not a series that you actually win money on. It's very similar to what we would do at any other regatta. At the moment, there aren't that many sailing events out there that have prize money. I know that the Star League is doing it, and they're having a huge amount of success, and that's really exciting. And the match racing in the other 32-foot catamarans, which are the Marstram catamarans, had some prize money too. I'm sure I'm missing some of them, but for the most part, we're not seeing a lot of that at the moment.
So back to the cost of or the fees that a person can make. If a guy's a crew in your Extreme Sailing Series, is he making $800 a day, $700 a day? What's the range? And if he's a skipper, how much is he making?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know the exact answer, but I think a lot of the guys on the Extreme Sailing Series are probably making around $500 to $600 a day. I'm sure some of the top teams and some of the guys with Olympic medals and so on, skippers, maybe closer to the $1,000 mark. It could be higher. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure. I think that to run a successful or to be a part of the Extreme Sailing Series, to do the 8 acts with the boat and the team and so on and so forth, I think the budgets range from anywhere between $700 US to probably 1.1 US million, correct? Mm-hmm. And that's for the entire series. And
so that'll be an annual budget to run a team.
Around there, yeah, and it varies again, but depending on who the teams are and who the sponsors are and the level of commitment they have. If they're a team that's been on the series for multiple years, or if they're a team that might only be doing a wild card like we did last year. We only did one regatta last year. We're working towards being a bigger part of the series. But again, it's a corporate driven event, and so it's up to us to go out and find the sponsors and get the athletes and everyone behind it and figure out how to fund it.
The CapEx, what's it cost to buy a boat? What are a set of sails cost?
Well, these are one design boats, and so and they have really strict one design rules. I know every year that every boat that's on the series goes through a check to make sure that they're all up to the rules. At the moment, I'm not sure if they're actually making any new boats right now. The boats were made at Premier in Dubai. I'm a little unsure if they're still making them. I think they can, but I'm not sure what is going on there. The cost varies a little bit. I think it's about $300 US to get in. It's probably a little bit more, really. There's also some used boats that are now on the market that are less than that. The expensive part, really, even though that's a lot of money, is once you get the boat and running it and maintaining it and sailing it properly with the right sailors, and that's really where more of the expense comes than the actual boat itself. But I think that if you were to jump in right away and wanted to do this, around 300 US will get you a boat with the sails, and you can be close to getting on the water.
And you're currently, the circuit now has 8 stops, 8 venues?
Yeah, so they go to 8 different venues each year. This year, they're actually only doing 7. There was an 8th event on the schedule, and because of a unique political situation, they canceled one of the events. So this is one of the first years that I know of that the Extreme Sailing Series is actually only doing 7, but it's typically 8 events.
And talk about the spectating, shoreside spectating at the venues. Which venue has the biggest amount of shoreside spectators, and how many might that be?
Well, we hope it will be San Diego one day.
Good for our neighbors in Southern California?
Yeah,
Beautiful
exactly.
place to watch a sailboat race?
No, it's great. And again, that's what we're really trying to do. That's why we do a festival around it. And we work to bring people down there for sailing and other reasons. And that's one of the reasons we do that.
So a 4-day event would be a Thursday through Sunday event?
It is, yeah. And the busy days are the weekend, obviously. And the Thursday of the event actually is considered a media day. So they bring all the media down and they get them out on the boats and stuff like that. So although they are racing, it's a little bit slower day from a spectating standpoint. Then things start to ramp up on Friday afternoon, and then Saturday and Sunday are the biggest ones. But I think the biggest event from a spectator standpoint is Cardiff.
How many spectators, shoreside?
Well, I've seen impact reports that vary depending on the year and the weather over there and stuff. But I think they've had almost all the way up to 60,000.
And what's any numbers on economic impact to each venue when a week-long regatta is held? And I said week-long. It's a Thursday through Sunday event, but you got some prep work and other kinds of events going on.
Yeah, the teams typically show up 4 or 5 days before. The rules of the Extreme Sailing Series doesn't allow the boats to come and practice for 5 or 6 days. They only really have a day and a half or so to practice.
On the venue.
On the venue, correct. And so, and they do that to control the budget. And so you get a couple of the teams showing up a little beforehand to put the boats together, and then the race crew comes in, and so on and so forth. You also have OC Sports and the Extreme Sailing Series, who have a significant group of people that show up to put the event on, and so that's an impact for the city. We do an economic impact report in San Diego. I think probably every venue does, and the big factors that we fight for is obviously bringing spectators to the event. We're heavily trying to promote heads and beds in San Diego. The San Diego the tourist marketing district is one of our backers, and that's really sort of the hotel money in San Diego. So we work hard to have people come and stay in hotels. And then the amazing part of what this series actually does, and I think that it will continue to grow, is it carries a substantial amount of media value. So for the San Diego event alone, the economic impact report from a media value standpoint is about $30 million. And it's the highest on the circuit for a first-year event. And so this event works in North America.
Is that the rate card value of the exposure that you're getting? How do you quantify that?
It's done in different ways, and Nielsen does it. But yeah, pretty much how it's done. And there's a bunch of different factors that go into it, but a lot of it will be sort of on the Facebook side, and I leave that to the pros. But
so what's the viewing demographic? Who's watching?
Well, we were a little bit surprised. It's a good question. We were a little bit surprised last year in San Diego, where we thought that the sailors would be the biggest demographic, and that's where people would come from. But what turned out happening is, because it has the extreme title attached to it and the boats are fast, we ended up getting a lot of people from Southern California that were young, more male than female, that are into extreme sports. And the majority of people that came by land were the 18 to 27-year-old extreme sport enthusiasts. And that was really exciting to us. We're very happy that was the case. We were really surprised that we didn't get as many of the sailing crowd as we expected. But we were year one, and we're learning how this is done. There's a lot of ways to reach out to people, and this is one of the reasons why we come and do these kind of things, is to get the word out. And we're hoping to see both more of that crowd come and also the sailors themselves.
So we're visiting today with Matt Reynolds, founder and CEO of the Extreme Sailing Series in San Diego, one of 7 stops this year. Now, if you have a question in the audience, hold your hand up. Vern Neff will bring the microphone over, and we'll take your question. Let's see, another question about what speeds are the boats going in 15 knots, let's say, of breeze?
15 knots of breeze, the boats go 22, 23 knots. And so they're fast.
Are they foiling upwind and not downwind, did you say?
No, they only foil upwind, and there's probably more reasons behind that than I can explain here. But one of the reasons is these boats they don't have hydraulics on them like the boats that you saw sailing here in San Francisco. The loads are a lot on the foils, as you can tell, because you have all this boat and just a little tiny board in the water. And so it's all done manually by the strength of the crew. And because of that, you're limited to what they can and can't do. My guess is the technology will one day change a little bit, but at the moment, upwind they just fly a hull, and downwind they fully foil.
What does a boat weigh full up? Boat, rig, sails, boom, all that?
I don't know the exact answer to that, but probably about 2,500 pounds.
28, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right around there, and so light.
We have a question, Mark Lambros.
Yes, I've got several questions, but I'll just ask one
All
right
right.
now. The Ultimates in Australia were very exciting and popular and ran for quite a few years, and they had gambling. All the spectators would be gambling on it and stuff like that. What is going on to make this... are people gambling on these things from different countries? What's going on to actually blow that marketing up?
Well, you're the first person that's asked that question, actually, but it's a good one. And at the moment, I don't know of anyone gambling on the event. But as some of you may know, the laws here on sports gambling are changing. And I wouldn't be surprised if at one point you can gamble. We have discussed getting some of the Indian reservations involved from a sponsorship standpoint and doing some gambling that's more based towards not necessarily gambling, but to foundations and prizes and stuff that way. We haven't got far enough along with them to do that, but I would expect that with the laws on gambling, sports gambling changing, that you probably will start seeing this happen in sailing. It wouldn't surprise me.
Another question from the audience.
Welcome to San Francisco, and congratulations on bringing sailing at such a exciting level to so many more people than normally would be able to experience it. 2 questions. At the speeds that the boats are attaining, the close quarters, are there safety innovations that you've adopted in the class? And the second question I have is, do you plan to bring the venue at some point to San Francisco?
Yeah, let's start with the safety. The OC Sports and the Extreme Sailing Series has done an amazing job. They have a lot of protocols that they've put in place to keep the boat safe. So that's most of the sailors will be wearing helmets. There's really, really strict exclusion zones set up. Each boat has its own rib that's on the water at all times, and there's also divers on the water, EMTs on the water. So it's very similar to what they did here in the America's Cup. The PRO is John Craig, who was doing the America's Cup here in San Francisco. And so they've really adopted a lot of that. They have created some things probably outside of that, but safety is obviously a factor. It's going to become more of a factor in the sport as foiling continues to grow. And we'll just have to see. But at the moment, those are some of the things that we do. I might have missed a couple of the protocols. We have the Coast Guard on hand, and we have EMTs. We actually have 2 different EMT ambulances on shore if there's medical emergencies and stuff like that. So we're doing everything we can. We've been very, very fortunate where we haven't had any major accidents, and we're proud of that, but we'd like to keep it that way. And is it coming to San Francisco? right now, obviously, we're the group that's sort of we are the local promoters of the San Diego event. I would like to see the Extreme Sailing Series grow in North America. I believe that OC Sports and the Extreme Sailing Series would like to see that as well. There's logistics behind that, and I don't know exactly what the future looks like, but I would like to see that happen, and it wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing more venues in North America as we go. You guys have the right venue, you have the wind, you've proven that you can put stadium sailing on, so this would definitely be a great venue.
Julia, we have from our Facebook audience abroad, what do we have here?
There are no grand questions, but I do have a couple of reports, and that is Commodore Rick Pfaff is watching, and Mike Buckley, who is heading another America's effort for America's Cup, is also online.
Wonderful. Glad to have them. Welcome, guys. Let's talk about, first of all, a day in the life of a sailor. What time are they getting up in the morning? What time are they leaving the venue? What time are you seeing them?
I think that there's a couple different people in the program that have different responsibilities. So boat captains and probably get down to the boat a little bit earlier than others. So they're probably showing up around the boat around 7 or so. I know that the sailors will do a debrief of some type or a brief. They probably do the debrief the day after sailing. They do a brief on the weather, what the day is going to look like. So they probably start rolling in an hour or so after that. Depending on the start times, everything changes. With the Extreme Sailing Series, there's and being a corporate event, you get a lot of media and stuff there. So the sailors are coming down to the Extreme Club to answer questions. There's press conferences that the skippers need to be a part of. And so for racing that would normally start around 1 to 2 in the afternoon, they're really on site, the whole team, by 10 o'clock that day.
And how many races typically in a regatta over the 3 days of sailing?
They typically try to do between 23 and 30 races.
And how often is there a capsize?
Well, I think there was a lot more capsizes when they were sailing the Extreme 40s. Believe it or not, these boats don't capsize as much. I know that there's been a few. I don't know exactly how many, but these boats are...
per regatta, how often?
I don't think there's been a capsize yet this season racing. I know of one during practice. The unique part about these boats is they can capsize and they don't seem to break like the other boats did. I know that the Extreme 40s, when they capsized, took a little more damage. And so if they do tip these boats over, typically they can pull them back up and be back racing fairly quickly, depending on exactly what happens. But the boats are good.
And so if they're going 20 knots or so, they've got closing speeds in the range of 40-ish. So rank the top sailors. Give us who you think are the top apparent wind sailors that are sailing in this circuit.
Morgan Larson.
Okay,
are you out there, Morgan?
No,
Morgan's a friend of mine, and he's been very involved in the Extreme Sailing Series, and he's did very well in the Extreme 40s and now has done very well in the GC 32s. But all the skippers that are currently sailing the GC 32 are top foiling sailors in the world, as well as their crews. And with the America's Cup fairly recently over, all those gentlemen and ladies that were involved in the America's Cup from a sailing standpoint are really at the forefront, in my opinion, of the foiling now. They've been exposed to the highest end of the technology. They spent the most time on the water, and it's not a big group, but there's a group of 30 or 40 or so out there now that are probably considered the top foiling sailors. We also see a lot of the top foiling sailors coming out of the Moth class. A lot of them actually came from Moth right into the America's Cup. We've also seen younger sailors getting involved in the America's Cup because of the foiling technology as well. So it's hard for me to say really who they are, but they're coming from experience in the boats and on the water. Tom?
Question from Tom Eamon. Tom?
Apropos the America's Cup, Matt, now that the Cup has gone back to foiling monohulls, what do you think the impact will be on your circuit? Because you're in multi-hulls. Will it continue, or will you also, do you think the ESS will go back to foiling monohulls of some type?
No, we don't see ourselves going back to monohulls, or we never went. We're in monohulls. It was always a catamaran circuit. The Extreme Sailing Series will stay there. They adopted a new boat, and so that's never out of the question as technology changes. I think we're a little bit early on in seeing exactly how the monohulls foil. I believe they will, and I believe that there's plenty of smart people out there that will figure out how to do this. But this series is unique. It's been around for 12 years. They've had a huge amount of success throughout the world on where they've done. And I don't see the America's Cup and monohulls that foil affecting how this circuit works. They've got a nice brand, and I think that they'll continue to put on fantastic events throughout the world. And hopefully, by going to new markets, which I know they're doing, and which we're trying to do, that will continue to drive this particular event.
So what's the business model for the Extreme Sailing Series? Who pays and who gets paid?
Well, the sailors are obviously getting paid. There's every city has a different organization that reaches out to the Extreme Sailing Series to put the event on. So the Extreme Sailing Series gets paid. They have a couple different options on how to do that. As a group of promoters, myself, putting on the event, we look to raise money through sponsorship. We also have things that we do through the venue that have revenue streams, and that's where we look to make money. I'm sure there's a lot of other ways that other people do it. From country to country, it's quite a bit different. And a lot of the sponsors that are involved in the series, certain markets have a lot more value to them. And so depending on who you are and what sponsors are there and what markets they feel most important marketing in, then that really drives all that. So it's hard to tell you exactly how it works everywhere. San Diego, we look to raise money through the city, the port, again, the San Diego Tourism Authority, and the TMD. We also get local backing from companies in San Diego, and we also get backing from the actual Extreme Sailing Series itself and their sponsors. And we had a list up earlier. So those are really the ways that it can be done. But
so am I right in summarizing then that sponsors pay and venues, or the tourist side of venues, pay?
That's correct.
And the sailors get paid, and other parts of the professional organization get money?
That's correct.
Okay. Question from junior sailor Silas.
Hi. I was wondering what age most professional sailors start sailing at.
It's a good question, and it's changed a little bit. I think that the professional sailing's changed a lot, especially if you look at the America's Cup now. We're seeing younger, more athletic kids come out, but a lot of kids that are getting involved in professional sailing are starting basically out of college. And so in our country especially, they've gone to a college where they had a sailing program. They sailed for the 4 years in college, and then they, at that point, decide if they're going to go get a job or they're going to sail professionally. Outside of the United States, it's probably a little different. I'm not sure exactly what the pathways are. Probably a little bit different, but the age group I would say is coming out of college, which is young 20s or so.
Silas, what age were you when you first went sailing?
8 maybe.
And how old are you now?
15.
How tall are you now?
I don't know.
Keep at it, mate. Good. Thanks for the question. Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did he have another one? Did you have another question?
No.
Thank you. Great. So let's talk about the crew positions, the 5 crew positions. Talk a little bit about what they do, etc. So start from the front of the boat, the bow guy.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different on these boats. There is technically no one that goes up on the bow. It's a catamaran, and so.
So the pit guy, whatever you want to call it,
is more of a guy that's So there's the two trimmers. There's a mainsail trimmer and a obviously jib and zero. Yep. And then the other guys are really moving sails up and down. So getting the sail up and down, depending on the wind and the marks, and then getting the boards up and down. I don't know if you'd call that a bowman spot, but it's sort of the mechanical part of the boat. So as they go into jibes, one's lowering a board and one's pulling them up. And then the two trimmers and actually the helmsman on these boats does some of the trimming on the main as well when they get going. And so
what's the power? How's the power generated to raise and/or lower boards?
Super athletic sailors.
And purchase systems?
Yeah, there's purchase on them, and but it really is. It comes down to strength. I mean, when I started sailing professionally 20 some odd years ago, we were all talented athletes, but the skill level of the guys coming into the sport now, especially physically, is pretty amazing, and so. These particular boats demand a fair amount of strength on them. They're not easy to sail.
Another question from the audience, Mark Lambros.
Yes, well, but since you brought that up, how do you deal with an all-women's crew and the marketing that is necessary to reach that part of the audience of the world?
So the series has actually had all women's teams before. And they're competitive. The level of sailing going on for women right now is as high as men. We just saw that with the Volvo Ocean Race. It is a little bit more physically challenging, but from a sponsorship standpoint, I think that women have an opportunity, and there's a lot of companies out there that would like to look to sponsor all women's teams. We've actually discussed that down in San Diego. We have J.J. Fetter, who's a San Diego Yacht Club member and an Olympian, who helps with some of the organization of the event. And so she's very behind women's sailing, and we've looked into that. I know that, and I can't remember, I think it's the Agenta program. I might be mistaken, but it's a group of women that have been working hard to get sponsorship, and they sailed 2 years ago on the circuit in Cash Sky. They may have done 2 events. And so I think there's a big opportunity for women. They're more than capable, talent-wise, to sail these kind of boats. We've seen it, and they're maybe a little bit different concept in how physical it can be, but I've seen them do plenty well, and I think that we'll see more of it coming, and I hope we do. I hope we start seeing more women's teams competing at the high levels, because it's good for the sport.
So are the boats foiling through tacks?
No, they're not foiling upwind.
So they're falling off the foil.
Yeah, so they're basically flying a hull from tack to tack, and then once they get to the weather mark and bear away, then they start foiling.
And what size of TV audiences, and how are you marketing the TV rights?
Well, OC Sports puts on the whole television production of the Extreme Sailing Series. Last year it was done by a company called Red Handed, and so they go to all the events, and they reach out to all the international groups. I know that the Tom, you might be able to help me. What's the CNN group out of Europe? They put on a 5 or 6 part television show of the Extreme Sailing Series. The Outdoor Network here in the United States picked up the series this year. That was the big one in the States. We go out and drive it through local media channels, but really Red Handed and the Extreme Sailing Series are behind the television coverage of it, and they've reached out over the 12 years of their existence and built relationships that way. And so most of the media is pumped out directly through them.
So our guest today has been founder and CEO Matt Reynolds of the Extreme Sailing Series in San Diego. Thank you for joining the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon live from the St. Francis Yacht Club. And with that, the luncheon is adjourned. Thank you, Matt. Absolutely.